Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. I'm Josh Takimoto, and today we are joined by one of our favorites. I'm just going to say it. I don't care who's listening. I don't care who else has done the podcast. We love all of our guests, but this guy, I continue to bother him on every single podcast I start. And I believe this will be his second time on this podcast. We have the owner of Dynamic Training, Daniel Thomas. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on again. I love this place, man. It's like home.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Man. Yeah, we love, you're one of those guests where we could ask you every month, but like, no, we can't do that. We got to kind of spread out his time because we know you're a busy man. And I can't remember if you had your son yet last time we recorded. But I know whether or not you had your son yet, or it was right around that time, I know you were busy for that. So, yeah, man, anytime you take some time out of your busy schedule to chat with us, we definitely appreciate it.
Well, I haven't slept in the last year, so I'm probably on the same page as we were last time we talked. But I'm super excited to be on here and with a new topic, which I'm pretty hyped about.
Yes, a new topic for sure. Something different, something we haven't had on this podcast yet, but something I'm really excited to talk about. But I do want to point out one thing. Daniel, if you guys don't follow Daniel on social media, you might be one of the few people that don't, because you have your following continues to grow and grow and grow. But it's impressive, man. One of the things, as a fellow dad myself, the fact that you're able to stay in the kind of shape that you do is impressive, man. Because a lot of people will be like, I'm too tired. I can't do this. The kid, the baby, the sleep, all that stuff. But I feel like you might be in better shape now than you were before the baby. Am I wrong there?
I think there's some sort of strength that comes with being a dad,
That's
the
it.
dad strength has taken over. But no, I've gone through tons and tons of struggles myself, just same thing, being tired. And I'm not going to act or fake that I don't have a caffeine addiction to the max, because that is real.
I'm with you.
Um, but overall, I'm really lucky though, because I'm surrounded by a bunch of awesome, super fit, strong guys and coaches. And so when I want to slack off, they keep me accountable for better or for worse. So that's helpful.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen the videos with you guys lifting together. I'm like, oh, this is just a different animal of guys here. This is wild. But it's cool though. It proves that the accountability is important, and having strong people around you, both like mentally and physically, is an important thing. So man, I love seeing it. But yeah, I'm gonna put it out there. I think you might be the most in shape dad that I know. So good for you, man. I'll give you that title until I meet someone else.
I'll take that all day. Let's go. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So, anyways, I didn't bring you on this podcast to talk about you or your strength of your body. We'll save that for a different podcast. And plus, I want to be able to go face my wife later. It's like, what were you talking about? I was just talking about Daniel Thomas and how the kind of shape he was in. She's like, what? So, anyways, man, we're here. I wanted to bring you on for a very specific reason, because obviously we're in September right now. All the schools are finally back in session, fall sports, and I've seen you post quite a bit about the new girls flag football team up at Del Oro. And we've seen that kind of all over the area. And it's been cool because I feel like it's really taken off. And so that being said, I wanted to make sure we had someone on this podcast who could speak a little bit more to that specific sport, because it is new to the area. And I thought, man, what better person than to have you on? And honestly, to be honest with everybody, when I first reached out to you, I was just asking if you had some kind of contact with the team, because I saw the pictures and I figured you were just training them. I didn't realize you were one of the coaches. So again, going back to your busy schedule, you decided to add one more thing to the plate. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to talk to someone about this, then I'm going to talk to Daniel. So anyways, that's enough of me talking. Tell me a little bit about how you got connected and why you decided to jump on board and coach the girls football team, or girls flag football team, up at Del Oro.
Yeah, so obviously I just had nothing going on.
Sure. Yeah, empty slot in your schedule.
Yeah, so Coach Steve Birch, who's a longtime Del Oro football coach with Casey Taylor for 20 plus years, he actually came and reached out to me, and he had stepped away from coaching the men's team, and told me that he was going to take over as the head coach for this women's flag football season. And he was super excited about it, and his passion was just extremely grabbing, like it was contagious. And so it's something that I wanted to be a part of, and I thought would be super fun, because at my facility I work with a ton of female athletes, and I love working with our female athletes. So I was super excited about it. And I don't think anyone really knew what to expect. because it is the first year. And, there's a bunch of new rules. The refs are kind of figuring it out. The coaches are figuring it out. We were getting rule changes like every week leading up to the season. And I still think there's going to be a lot of changes moving forward for like the next years, just to kind of like a little trial and error, I think is the best way to say it. But yeah, so Coach Birch reached out to me and a couple other of my guys. And the biggest thing for me was personally, I was like, you have to be flexible with me, coach. Like I got a lot going on right now. But he was open to being flexible with me. And I've actually been way more committed than I even let on initially, because I got a little taste of it. And he'll tell you, like, if you get a little taste of this, you're going to be drawn in and you're going to want to continue. And he was not wrong.
That's awesome. Now, like I said, we've talked quite a few times over the years. Remind me, did you have plans of coaching? Have you coached in the past, or is this your first kind of step into the coaching world?
Yeah, so I do like things called Receiver Academy, where I work with receivers from all schools. So I do,
Sure.
but in an actual like public school setting, I've never coached, which is pretty funny. That my first gig is with the women's side of the football arena, because I'll show up to the field and all the Delaware football guys are like, "What's up, Coach TT? Like, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm over with the girls. Like, see you guys later." But so this is my first realm, and Coach Birch has been awesome. I run the offense, so we all work together. But come game day, I'm calling the plays, and Coach Birch and I work hand in hand with the offense, and he's drawn up a lot of great plays. So we have other coaches, Coach Bill Sherman, who is head coach of the JV, but also runs the defensive side. And I think Birch's goal was really to put good coaches around him so he can kind of be the facilitator. But he's got a really hands-on role with both sides of the ball.
Now, are you guys, so you have to forgive me, I don't know much about the structure of any of this, but are you guys one of the only programs that has an offensive coach, a defensive coach, or is that kind of the standard across the board?
Honestly, I think it's really up in the air right now. I have no idea. I know that some schools, their teachers like the art teacher, or excuse me, their coach is the art teacher. And some schools like ours, where we have a lot of ex-football coaches, ex-football players that are coaching. So with this being the first season, I have no idea how all the teams are structured. The only thing I do know is that Del Oro, they take their football seriously, because we go against teams that have like 15 girls, and we've got 80 girls between our JV and varsity program.
Whoa.
Which is, yeah, and I think everyone's like, we have that intimidation factor down. Like, we have a crazy amount of girls, we have a good amount of coaches, and so that was the one thing Birch said when he brought me on. He was like, "Hey, we're going to be overly prepared. Like, our practice script is by the minute. It's like, hey, you got 10 minutes of install, we got 10 minutes of individual work, we got team." So we are extremely structured. I don't know if I can say that for all the programs, but a big part of that is due to Coach Birch and how he's kind of running things.
And that doesn't surprise me about Delaware football, because I remember like 10 years ago seeing a practice at one point. I can't remember the exact situation, but I think it was a shared. Oh, you know what it was for? It was for the Optimus game, actually, I think. And so it wasn't Delaware necessarily, but you had Casey on one side and the other. I can't remember the other coach. He was on the other side, and there was a very clear difference. No disrespect to the other coach, but there was a very clear difference between how the two sides were operating. And it's like, oh, I kind of understand how this Delaware football thing works, because the guys on that side who are part of Delaware football have it like very structured, just go, go, go. And it's just like, it's a different machine. So it doesn't surprise me at all that that's how it's going up there. But man, 80 people, 80 girls that came out. So I imagine I imagine it didn't take much to get a team together. It sounds like they were just like raring to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have over 50 freshmen.
Okay.
And that was a really big surprise, was like the girls coming in were super excited and super hyped up about it. I don't know how much of an influence myself and my facility had to do with that. But we definitely, the moment we heard girls flag football was becoming a thing, we've encouraged all of our female athletes, multi-sport athletes, to get out there. So like, because, we work with girls from Rockland. So I've been trying to get these Rockland soccer players to go out for flag, and for Whitney and for Del Oro, before I was even officially coaching. And so I've been really a big pusher of trying to get this thing going. So it's been a blast, and I think it's only going to get better and better. I think the more that the programs, the schools, and the communities pour into it and support it, the better it's going to grow, right?
Sure.
So at some schools, we show up and it's like dead, and there's minimal help. There's like the other team showed up and there's refs and that's about it.
Mm.
Versus at Del Oro, we got the jumbotron on. There's highlights of the girls' games being played. We've got announcers announcing the girls' play-by-play. We've got fans in the stands, and so we really try our best to make it fun and to give these girls that same like Del Oro football treatment, because I think a lot of people would argue to say, football players get special treatment and football players are loved in their communities and their schools. And so we're really trying to bring that to the girls side of things.
I love that, man. And that's awesome. I think it's awesome that you have a direct hand in influencing and encouraging people to go play this new sport. That's just kind of now coming together at some of these schools. So I think that's awesome, man. And you as a trainer, it speaks to your influence, man, especially if people are like, oh yeah, coach DT says we should play. I guess we're going to go play some flag football. And so I think that's awesome, man. Now let me ask you this, because you do work with so many of the schools, and like before we started recording, I was mentioning that it seems like your guys' area, Rockland, Roseville, kind of out that way, maybe Lincoln, it seems like it's a pretty popular thing up there right now. Whereas I know some other areas of Sacramento, it's not nearly as possible. Some districts, I don't even think they were able to get a league together because just there wasn't enough interest. Is it ever weird? Because I imagine that some of the teams you guys play have some of the athletes that you train at your facility. Is that ever a weird? Because I imagine there's some looks across the field like, oh man, like this is the dude that trains us and now he's competing against us. What's going on here? I'm sure you get people giving you a hard time all the time.
You know what? So far, we've been on the winning side of most of these events, and so everybody's been a really good sport, and but it's always like at the end when we're high fiving, like good game, hey, good game,
Nice.
like. And so it's fun, and like you said, I
Yeah,
post on social media all the time, so I don't think it's any surprise to people that where I'm coaching.
sure.
But one question I did get a ton of is like, hey, why aren't you coaching at Whitney High School? Why aren't you coaching at Rockland High School? Like, because my facility is located way closer to those schools,
Mm-hmm.
and now I live in Lincoln too. So, but I try to tell people, part of it is that I bleed black and gold. That's where I went to high school. But then the other part of it is, Coach Birch, he really came out and sought me out and really told me like his vision behind it. And I want to be a part of something that's special and that cares. I don't want to just go to play with a school that is kind of like, oh, well, I guess everyone's doing flag football. Like, I guess we got to put a team together. And sadly, there are some schools that are kind of like that, like you mentioned. But at Del Oro, man, Coach Birch is the perfect person to have start this off because he's bringing that football, that Loomis tradition. And I'm really excited because I think in a couple of years, it's going to be like, oh, hey, we got JV girls, JV boys, freshman boy. Because we play on Thursdays. And so like the freshman boys team will play Thursday night.
Sure.
And then the JV girls will play right after. And then then the varsity girls will play right after. So now you got a whole Thursday packed full of football. And then you get Friday packed full of football. I think that it could really be something big.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, again, I keep going back to it, but I think the fact that, and you may not feel comfortable saying this, I'll say it for you. The fact that you are someone who's incredibly influential in the area as a trainer, as a coach, as an athlete, on social media, I think your attachment to it is important, because you could get some coach that no one really knows that's like, I mean, sure, I guess I'll coach this. What is it? Flag football? That they just don't care. But the fact that people know what you do, they know you're a business owner, they know that you're a trainer, they know that you have a family, they know you have all these things, and you're still willing to take the time out of your schedule to do this thing. To me, as a spectator, as someone who's looking from the outside in, it's like, okay, this must be something worth investing time into. If Daniel's doing it, considering his schedule, like maybe I should consider coaching as well. So I think there's a potential like ripple effect here of you being involved and other people like yourself who have some status to be involved in this thing, because I think it's gonna inspire and encourage other people to do the same.
I hope so, because I think it's going to be really fun. And I already see, like in my facility, like 7th grade girls and 8th grade girls that are like, hey, coach, guess what? I'm going to play flag football when I get in high school. Like, it's kind of like already happening, and we're only 10 weeks into a first year ever. So I can't imagine in a couple of years like how much fun it's going to be.
And I think it's a cool thing too, because, and I imagine because it's just starting off, I imagine there's a decent amount of people that are like, well, this is like powder puff, right? Because I think most schools do the powder puff game, which is basically one night. They maybe practice for a week. They get together, and it's just a fun, silly thing. They're still competitive, but like it's meant to just be like a one-time fun thing. But like this is like a legit. This is a league. This is recognized by CIF as a sport, a competitive sport. And so I think once people really understand that part of it, like I completely agree with you. I think it's going to really take off.
Yeah, and it's so cool. Like people don't realize that until you tell them. Like, someone's going to get a section ring this year. Like
Right.
that's real, and
Right.
I think that's really really awesome.
Now, do you think there's how many people do you think are out there that because it's such a new thing, how many girls do you think maybe wanted to play, but were intimidated by the unknown of it?
I think more than that, there's been a struggle to get camaraderie and to get coaches from other sports on the same page.
Hmm.
Specifically soccer being a difficult one, with some really high level, fast, athletic girls in the community at all these local schools that play high level comp soccer. Um, a lot of people are like, oh, well, we don't want to risk our kid getting hurt. We don't want to risk injury. We don't want to risk this, that. And so some of the soccer coaches have not been very receptive to letting girls, oh, they're going to have to miss a practice on Thursday night because they have a game, and things like that. So my hope would be that moving forward, some of these other coaches would loosen up their leash a little bit and allow these athletes to play multiple sports for a few reasons. For one, I think it's really, really cool to have a sport where there's less pressure on the girls. They can go out and have fun and still compete, but not have to worry about like, is there a college scout in the stands? Like as of now, and it might get to that point, but as of now, it's not like that. And as well as I'm a huge, huge promoter of cross training and of multi-sport athletes because I think there's very few of them in today's world. And I think multi-sport athletes are the best athletes. And so if you can get a soccer girl or a basketball girl to learn how to move her body on a football field, it's only going to make them better in their primary sport.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about on this, not this podcast, the Character Combine podcast, quite a bit because I know it's always a big topic, and I feel like it seems like more and more people are promoting that idea. I mean, I know a while ago you would get somebody every once in a while saying like, "No, you need to specialize," and now it feels like a weird. I'm sure I mean, you would know better. I'm sure there's people that still say that, but it feels like a weird thought now that we've gotten, this deep and this, this much information about athletes and their development and all that stuff. I don't hear that as much anymore, but I'm sure it's still out there.
Yeah, I think it's mostly you're just seeing a ton of injuries, and
Sure.
so with high level injuries comes research and comes people saying why are people getting injured at younger ages, and so I think that's where that story that kind of goes into.
Yeah. And it's actually funny that you mentioned, this idea of a coach, being more flexible and allowing their athlete to play another sport during the same season. 'Cause I was actually just talking to someone about this. When I was in high school, I don't think I went to high school with anybody that did that, where they played the same sport. I mean, the one exception might have been if someone did track and they played another sport. But for the most part, like there was no soccer players that played football or, any of that. So, do you know some people that are able to do that? And is the main hang up the coaching side of it? Is it like what you said, the coach is just not comfortable or willing to allow their athletes to do that? Or is it the athlete that's not interested in doing that? Like I've always wondered, because I like I said, I personally never knew anybody that was able to do it, but I'm sure you're around way more athletes than I am. So what is it that kind of prevents an athlete from doing that?
I think feeling like they're going to get passed up, right? Like, oh, this person is specializing in playing 24/7. If I go play another sport, I could be just getting better at my sport.
Sure.
And I think that's the fear that athletes have. I think that if coaches were more open and willing to allow players to have flexibility, that more players would do multiple sports because there's definitely a handful that are one sport athletes because they're not allowed to. Their coach won't let them play other sports, which I hate the thought of that just because you're a coach, you're not a parental guardian or a parent. Like they shouldn't be making those kind of decisions, in my opinion.
Sure.
But the best example in today's current game, I'm going to stick with my Del Oro ride, is the quarterback that everyone's talking about for Del Oro's varsity, Caden Pinnick. He is a phenomenal quarterback, debatably the best one in Northern California. And I have college recruiters, people that I actually played with in college that now coach, that are recruiters, reaching out to me, wanting to offer him scholarships. And like he's a next level type player, and he plays basketball, football, and baseball at a high level, to where he's getting recruited by colleges for all three sports. And I know it's kind of, when people talk about, a negative or a downfall, that's the thing that pops up. They're like, oh, well, he won't commit to one sport. He plays all these different sports. But I think that's what makes him so elite and makes him so, phenomenal as an athlete, is that he is a multi-sport athlete. But with that being said, it hasn't been an easy journey. He's had to literally look people in the face and be like, you don't want to start me, but I'm going to be playing basketball. I remember last year he went from a Friday night football game playing quarterback, and then he went to a travel baseball tournament and then played 3 games at Hardwood Palace on Sunday for basketball. Like it's no joke. So I'm sure that there is an extreme on both ends, right? Of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do so much. But with that being said, I mean, it is possible to tell your coaches, I'm going to do this, and you can't tell me what to do. But that's not an easy conversation for any young high schooler to have. And I think you have to have so much confidence in your ability in each individual sport to be like, hey, coach, even if you're going to punish me somewhat, I'm good enough to still be the guy, and I'm confident that you're still going to want to use me.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is a big part of it, is like you said, the confidence in your ability, because, some of the athletes who maybe are on the bubble, maybe they're like a fringe starter.
Totally.
Coach is like, okay, cool, go play the other sport, but then maybe just stay there, because I mean, that is a tough thing. And like you said, it's tough enough for a star athlete, one that, who knows, no matter what sport they're going to play, they're going to be a starter. That's still a difficult conversation. But then, yeah, depending on the skill level, the relationship, yeah, it's a tough thing. But like you said, at the end of the day, it is up to the athlete and what they want to do, and how the coach reacts to it is kind of out of their control.
Yeah, and all of our girls, I don't know how many. I mean, there might be some of the freshman girls, but definitely like on our varsity team, there's very few that are flag football only.
Sure.
We have their basketball players, their softball players, their soccer, their lacrosse, they're multi-sport athletes. And so we've been really lucky and blessed to be able to have that community with our other coaches of other sports to allow that crossover to happen. With that being said, once again, props to Coach Burke. She made all of our practices in the morning before school so that no one's evening practices get interfered with their other sports. Sure. So they can come to flag football practice, and then after school they can go to basketball practice, or they can go to lacrosse practice. And I think that a big part of coaches missing out on some of their athletes is the structure of their practices, and realizing that you're dealing with multi-sport athletes and you have to make it available for them.
Right. Obviously, like you said, you have multiple sport athletes coming to play for you, and they have different backgrounds. Do you find that there's a specific sport that has been out to flag football more than maybe other sports?
That's tough. Basketball, we have a lot of basketball. We have a lot of softball. Those are our 2 big sports. Now, one of our coaches is our girls' varsity basketball coach.
Okay, sure.
So that definitely, I think, is helpful, because that she's here being supporting the sport and encouraging her girls to play. And those girls have hands, man. You're talking about the receivers that can go up and catch the ball. Those hoopers know how to get up and get a ball. So that's been fun to see. And then softball, I mean, I think the majority of our quarterbacks play softball. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them do. And so that translates a little bit arm strength and things like that. So those are the 2 major sports. But then lacrosse and soccer are also sports that are heavily involved as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I know, again, if I keep pointing back to this, but if anybody doesn't follow Daniel on social media, you would not know that he is still someone who likes to compete. And I've seen the videos of you on the flag football field yourself. The funny thing is, I've seen you on videos of what our friend Cody Allen as well, because I believe he plays in the same league. But it's just weird. I'll see you guys on each other's videos. I'm like, this is very strange. Both have been podcast guests here, and now they're competing against each other on the flag football field. So that being said, I mean, obviously you've played at a high level of football, just normal, full contact football. You also still compete in flag football leagues. Do you feel like your competition and your knowledge of the flag football game as an athlete yourself has helped you understand the game better as a coach, or is it just a completely different thing?
No, definitely. I definitely think it does. There's for sure some rules with the girls flag football league that are very strange and that are very different that I wasn't used to. Um, but in general, like learning how offenses work, I think that it's helpful. It's really helped me out from an offensive standpoint because really you have two types of coaches: either coaches that didn't play football or have never coached football, or you have coaches that have coached regular tackle football. And neither one of those are setting you up for success for a flag football league because it's like 7-on-7, but there's a running back option as well, but it's still flag rules. So there's definitely an interesting dynamic that comes behind it, and I think that playing myself is definitely helped. What's actually more funny is our refs crossover. So I'll be at a game coaching and I'll be like, oh gosh, we got this ref again. I had him 3 days ago. He's or I know he calls these kind of things all the time, or he doesn't pay attention to this. So
Yeah.
that's been actually pretty funny for me to recognize refs and see the crossover that's there. But just in general, the rules are so different, and I think they're constantly going to be changing over the next few years until like really like put the mold together as to what they're looking for.
Now, are you gonna, or I guess yourself and other coaches who are currently in that position right now, are you guys gonna have some say in the rule changes? Like, I mean, are they gonna reach out to you guys? Is there gonna be some kind of meeting where you guys kind of have a massive brainstorming session to say, hey, this was awesome, this sucked. Hey, maybe let's not ever do this again because it didn't work. I mean, is there going to be some kind? Because I mean, you guys are the ones who are doing it, and you guys are having the direct contact with the athletes. So I imagine they would want to reach out to you, but sometimes with those types of things, they would surprise you. But are you going to be a part of anything like that?
Myself personally, I haven't been reached out to. I don't know if I will be, but I know that Coach Birch has some involvement with that. There's some. I think there either is or will be like a committee or
Sure.
a board that will come together. And so I know he's going to have his hand in that. And so I'm assuming that they would probably reach out to head coaches um, and kind of pick brains and see what they thought worked well and what didn't work well. So
Sure.
myself personally, I don't know about that, but I know there is for sure going to be like a committee or a board that goes through those things.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So as far as you as the play caller, like how much of that creativity is just like constantly flowing out of you? Are you just like constantly trying to draw up plays, like when you're just sitting around, hanging out with the baby, hanging out with the family, or is it do you kind of just leave that to the side? You focus on play calling for a little bit, do your coaching thing, and then you can kind of hang it up, or is it like now that you're in that coaching world, is it just constantly on your mind?
Yes, especially because we play our own league on Sundays. So like I am like
See,
I'll be like, oh, this play worked really good, and then I'll be like, oh, how can we wrap this up? Uh, so yes and no, but sometimes I get a little carried away as well because I have to remember that these are girls that are learning a whole new sport,
sure,
and very few of them were have. It's not that they haven't watched football, especially in the Del Oro community. They're very well aware of football and the rules to it. But one thing that's been pretty funny is like really basic terminology that you think is normal just goes right over their head sometimes. Like I'm talking to the safety and I'm like, if you catch this pick, take it to the house. And she's like, whose house? And I'm like, what? you know? And so we've had some really fun times like that where it's like,
yeah,
you know, we you say things like, oh man, I'm trying to think of some other ones. This is my time to shine here. We have it all written down in the phone too, of like just like funny words like when it's third and
awesome,
4 and you want to tell a girl to get to the sticks. You're
sure,
like, get to the sticks, and they're like, what stick? Like, what are you talking about? You know, we're just like, go to 4 yards.
yeah,
And so like there's little terminologies that are so readily used and common within the football world that is not common with the women and the female athletes. And so sometimes we have to take a step back and realize like, hey, we gotta slow it down a little bit. And so a lot of it is this first year has been a huge learning curve for girls. Like, what is a slant? How
yeah,
do you run a slant? what are you looking for, and so I think in like 3-4 years, when these freshmen that are kind of being taught these things are seniors, then I think it's really, the creative juices are going to flow, and I think it's going to become even more exciting to watch because coaches will be able to get more creative. Right now we're definitely pretty creative with some fun plays, and you definitely see trick plays in every game from teams, like double
Sure.
reverse passes. There's definitely some fun plays, but I think as the girls continue to gain more and more knowledge, it's going to open that up more.
Yeah, man, just so much to think about. It's such an interesting time to be a coach for this specific sport because everybody, like you said, the athletes, the coaches, I'm sure to a certain extent, the refs, everybody's learning this new system, this new game. And so, there's just so much to think about rather than just going out there and coaching the game and coaching the personalities and kind of creating that team culture. There's so many other things you have to deal with. So yeah, it's just part of was it the first one through the wall is the bloodiest, right? It's kind of the it seems like kind of the motto for this whole thing because it's just a massive learning experience for all of you guys. But I mean, like I said, from the outside looking in, I need to go out to a game at some point. I need to check it out myself. Because like I said, just the clips I've been seeing, it's like, man, this is cool. It's like it's a fun thing to watch. And I'm glad that it's taking off the way it has been. And like I said, hopefully next year, as it continues to grow and develop, it becomes more popular because like changing the topic a little bit, but like, do the girls and the coaches understand, or is it like at the forefront of their mind that this is like a big deal? Like you're paving the way for other athletes in the future to do the same thing. Like, is that something that you guys talk about? Is that something at the forefront of people's mind? Or are those like, hey, we're just athletes and we want to compete like in the here and the now?
So like game one, I think it was hard. It was definitely like magnified,
Sure.
like explaining like, hey, this is going to be the first ever game. This is the first ever touchdown. Like we have a picture with one of our female athletes, Callie, and she scored the first ever varsity touchdown, and she actually got a picture with a gentleman who scored the first ever Del Oro football touchdown in history, and they took a
Whoa,
picture together.
that's
And
crazy.
so like his, I want to say that was 50 plus years ago for Del Oro football, and then that was 8 weeks ago or 10 weeks ago for us, and just being able to have them take a picture together, that's going to be framed for that picture for forever, and so
Sure.
I think in the very beginning we did, and now the girls are kind of like, we're just kind of in a flow, and we're trying to kind of get back into setting ourselves up for success and winning games. But as we get closer and closer to hopefully playoffs, which I believe we'll be in, and trying to make a run for the section, I think it's definitely something that'll come back up of like, hey, do you realize like to be the first ever league champs or section champs for that's something that you'll never get back. Year two is cool, but year one, man, that's something special.
It's a big deal. You know what? I never really put together this idea that you could, if you guys go to the sections, you win a ring. Yeah, you're just adding to your ring collection, man. That would be
Yes,
pretty
that's right.
dope. Yeah, I'm hoping that for you now. Not that I'm showing
Yeah, thank
favoritism to
you.
any teams. I'm just saying, like that would be a pretty cool thing. Get
Yeah,
the playing ring, the coach's ring. Just really, you have a wedding ring. Like you just have rings everywhere.
I'm
It's
trying
pretty
to
good.
trying to be Tom Brady, trying to fill up a hand. But
Yeah,
I
but
joke with
keep
the
your
girls all
keep
the
your wedding
time.
ring though. He wasn't able to hold on to that one, so
Right.
yeah,
Yikes. Yeah.
you
Fair.
lost that one.
I try to tell the girls like jokingly, but half serious, half joking, where I'm like, ladies, I am not out here for any reason other than win a ring, okay? Like, like I am out here for business. Like we're having fun, but like I need one of these. And then sometimes they're like, we get rings, and I'm like, this is legit, and like it kind of
Yeah.
like clicks with them, like, oh shoot, this is legit.
Now,
So
be honest. Have you brought your ring out to show him?
I haven't, but that's a great idea. We should bring those out.
I think you should, because
I
I
have
think
two.
that would be awesome. Because I feel like the first time I saw one when I was a sophomore in high school, the year before our varsity team baseball team won a section championship, and so I remember I was in the counseling office and one of the varsity guys came in, and he showed me the ring, and like I don't think you can quite understand what that's like until you. I mean, obviously but like when you actually see it in person, it's like it changes the whole game when you actually see it in person. So I'm just saying that might be some motivation. I'm not the coach. I'm a podcaster, but just a thought.
Well, and they're like Super Bowl rings. They're massive. They're
They're
no joke.
huge. Yeah.
They're absolutely huge. Yeah, like yeah, like almost too big, but awesomely big, you know.
Right.
And so I'm sure between myself and Coach Burke and Coach Sherman, like we have a nice collection of rings. And so that might be something really cool to show the girls. So great.
I'm just
Thanks for
saying.
that idea. I
Not a
like that.
problem. Not a
Yeah.
problem. Try to bring some ideas to the table. So let me know if you do it. Let me know how it goes.
Oh, for sure.
Um, yeah, it's what was my thought? I had a question for you. It probably wasn't a great question. I'm going to move on to my next question. Um, so being a coach now, you're in a different stage, different place, not just training them, in a group setting or a one-on-one setting, actually coaching the sport. I imagine it's a little bit different as far as the dynamics, a little bit different as far as how you connect with the athletes. So what would you say is maybe the biggest thing you've learned so far from being a coach in this specific space?
Um, it's a lot harder to get people to listen to you. That's number
There you
one.
go. That's from the
And
podcast. Thanks, guys.
we practice early in the morning, and so these poor girls show up, and I'm just like, I don't think anyone has heard a word I've said for the last 20 minutes, you know. But it's it's different because when people come to me in my facility, they're paying to be there, so there's a little bit more of it of like an intentness versus we're having so much fun, but it is definitely a sport that is fun, and like the girls want to have fun, and we want to make it fun for them. So that's one thing that has been a little different for me where like I've had a couple of coaches touch me on the shoulder like, it's okay, DT, breathe. And I'm like, no one's listening to me, but I'm like, I love these girls. But that's been one thing that's been like kind of a different feel. But the one thing that I really wanted to do and want to be is like is I remember when I was in high school, like what coaches did you like gravitate towards the most? And it was always like the players coach, right? Like the person that would celebrate with you the most, that would chest bump you, high five you, and celebrate your success. And so that was really like the one thing that I knew when I came out to actually be a coach and not a trainer. Was like, hey, I want to come out here and I want to celebrate success. I want to have cool handshakes. I want to chest bump and shoulder bump these girls when they get in the end zone because those are like the things that really stick out to me in my high school career. You don't really get that in college as much. Everyone's a lot more intense. But in high school, like there was always like that one or two coaches that would just celebrate with you and that you were like, that's my boy right there. Like I love that coach. And so that was my goal. I want to be that coach for these girls for them to look back and be like, man, Coach DT was so much fun. And we had a great time with him. So that was my goal going into coaching.
I love that, man. And especially, I keep saying it, but because of, your place in this sport and being in it early on, that's the stuff that they're going to remember. And that's the stuff that's going to, I think, encourage other people. Because if you guys were out there and it was a horrible experience for the athletes, the coaches weren't having fun, it was just a sucky environment. It's like, well, of course, the second year is not going to go anywhere because no one's going to want to go out there because they're going to hear that this is awful. Don't go out to play flag football at Del Oro because it's just a terrible experience. But if you have this word spreading that's like, this is just the most fun thing ever, and we're competing and we're growing and learning and we have the best coaches, like that's what's going to help the sport grow a lot. I think not just the competition, but just the people that are surrounding that sport. So yeah, I love hearing that. That's why we have you on the podcast, man, because we know you have that reputation and we know that you're just part of something, always part of something good, man. So I think that's great. And
it's been really fun because normally I'm the one like trying to create the environment and trying to create like bring people into what I'm doing. And so this was my first recent adventure where I get to like step into someone else's. Like I didn't create this team. I'm not the head coach. I'm not the main man at the front of this, and I just get to show up and be a part of something really fun and really special. And so it's been a really good outlet for me personally, like between the baby at home and the business. I love my business, but it's still my business, every day. And so it's been really nice to show up to something and to just have some fun.
That's awesome. Well, since you brought up the business side of things, and I'm sure we've talked to you about this before, and I heard somebody say recently, there's really no such thing as balance. Trying to find this idea of work and life, and there's not really a balance because you can never have it perfectly balanced, but you manage it, right? You manage your time, you manage your relationships and all of that. So because your life has changed a decent amount since we last spoke. How is all of that going? How are you able to manage things? Have you been able to find a nice, balance, or have there been moments where it's been challenging?
It's always
It's
challenging.
always challenging there.
It's always challenging. I'm not good at like giving half effort, and like being like, oh yeah, like I'll be involved, but like just kind of like I'm a very all in person. I give everything I got. Like the moment I stepped out there, I brought over our quarterback coach to come and help our girls with their throwing techniques, and he's super involved, Coach Hunter. I brought over my dad, who is like the number one freaking rally hype man in the world, and the girls just absolutely love him, and the coaches love him coming out there. And so I've not only brought myself, but like I brought my team with me kind of to come in and to help out to a certain extent. And yeah, and it's just funny because like my wife will come out and she'll bring the baby out, and the coach is like, the coaches are kind of like, yeah, you're probably not going to let him do this again next year, huh? Because it's taking up so much more time than expected. But I just don't know how to do anything, half effort. I'm trying not to say a bad word, half effort.
You can say whatever you want on this podcast.
and and so yeah, there's zero balance for me. Like I did not need to add this to my equation. Like I was plenty busy with my baby boy, and we just bought a house literally like 2 months ago or a month and a half
Congrats.
ago. Thank you. And there's so much going on right now with my business and my life, and so to add this on, it was like, where do you have the time, guy? Like, how is this possible? But my wife is just a rock star, and she allows me to have the freedom to go do these fun things. And so a lot of the quote unquote balance just really plays back to the spouse and plays back to my wife and her being like, like go do you. And she supports me so much. So because I don't have a balance, I drink a lot of caffeine. I don't sleep very much, and I love every minute of it.
Hey, there you go. As I've always said, man, those things that you're passionate about, you'll find a way to make it happen, even if the schedule is jam packed. If you're really passionate about it, you'll find a way to make it work. And I think we did talk about this last time. We talked about your wife and all coaches' spouses, right? And how it's a very special place for someone, and you have to find a special person who's willing to go on that journey with you, because coaching, especially if you do it at a high level, is incredibly demanding. And then on top of that, when you own a business, even more demanding. And so I'm glad to hear that, man. You're just confirming what you said last time about how important your wife is to that whole equation. Because I think unfortunately, I've heard a lot of stories of that not going well with coaches, as I'm sure you have too. And entrepreneurs, we did talk about this last time, the entrepreneurial part of that as well, and how it's not just a relationship and marriage tester, but usually it's something that breaks up those things because it's so much stress, so much tension. And so I'm glad that that's not the case for you, and that you guys are on the same page and moving in the same direction. That's great.
Yeah, she never gets mad at me, never upset. I'm always perfect, so it's
So just be
no.
more like Daniel, and you're good. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, right. No, she is
We'll have her on the
awesome. She's
podcast
awesome.
next time. It's like, I'll play that clip. Like, what do you think about this?
She'll be in the background like, oh yeah, huh? Why don't
Yeah,
you clean the bottle, Dad?
there you go.
I'm trying my best to when I have some downtime, because I am the one perk of being self-employed is you do have like weird hours.
Sure.
And so I do have a lot of like the gaps here where I have like an hour here or 2 hours here. And so I've been working hard at showcasing her love language and going out and helping out as much as humanly possible at home. So
You know what? That's an interesting, something you just said kind of just sparked this in my head. The interesting thing is, because you are a leader in multiple areas, that's where it gets really challenging, because you have to make sure that you are really giving your best effort in whatever you do, because as a leader, it's not just on you, right? It's not like you're just doing something out there by yourself and it's your life that's affected. It's actually the lives of a lot of people. So if you're doing all these things, but you go out to flag football practice and you're not giving your best effort, well, then the flag football team is suffering, right? If you're giving everything you have to your family and to flag football, but then you're not giving everything you have to your clients on your business side, then they're suffering. Or, same thing with home. So that's an interesting part about being a leader in multiple areas is, it stretches you and you have to be ready for it. Like you said, a lot of caffeine. is involved, I'm sure. But that's interesting. I've never really thought about it that way. You kind of think about a leader as being a leader towards a group of people, right? And it's like they're leading that group of people, but you don't realize how much they're stretched when they are leaders in multiple areas of their lives.
For sure. Yeah. And it's not always easy. You get home and you're tired and you're burnt out because you're just giving, give to everybody. And then you get home and, wife plops the baby on you and goes, all right, you deal with him now. He's been crying all day. I'm out,
Right.
And then I'm looking at this little dude, like, please just work with me. And he's just screaming. I'm like, all right, here we
Yeah.
go.
He's like, not going to happen, pops.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm like a couple more, a little bit older. Once he can come to practice with me, oh, it'll be great.
That's actually the perfect situation because he'll be dead tired by the end of the
Yeah,
night. And then, yeah, so it works in multiple ways. It's not bad.
for sure.
I've got to ask, man, as a fellow caffeine person myself, what's the caffeine of choice?
So I'm a big Monster Zero guy.
All right, I'm with
Now,
you.
now, let me tell you my strategy here, okay? Because this is important. Okay,
I'm
like
always looking for new strategies. Let me hear
there's
it.
a lot of drinks that have way more caffeine because a regular Monster has like 120 or something like that milligrams caffeine.
Sure.
But I think I'm addicted to carbonation. I think that's what it is. I just love
Okay.
the crack. Like if I'm tired and someone else around me cracks a can, I'm like I'm up, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So my strategy is I try to drink the ones that don't have as much caffeine in them because then if I want to have a second one, I don't feel like my heart's gonna explode. Versus if you drink like one of these Reigns or Bangs or these things with 300 milligrams, like if you drink two of those, like it's a lot of caffeine. Uh,
100%.
so I try my best to kind of like give myself some. I'm a big drinker. Like I like to have a drink. Like even if it's a shaker cup, like I'll throw some
Sure.
BCAs in it because I'm constantly like have to be drinking something. So I have to be cautious because sometimes initially when I was really tired, I'd be like, give me a rain with 300 milligrams, and then I sip on it and it's gone, and then I sip on another one, and next thing you know, I'm like, you know, my kid's like, Dad, no.
Why is he shaking?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my go-to. The Monster, the Ultras, the Zeros, because I can't take all the sugar. So
Yeah. I do like those a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, I do enjoy rain. I don't like the bang. I can pass on those pretty easily. The rain is a problem for me. I do enjoy that. And then ghost energy as well.
yeah, I haven't even tried the Ghost, but I know they're really popular.
Yeah, you don't need to. I mean, you
Yeah.
should, but you shouldn't. You know what I mean?
I'm
As
I don't I would love it, and that's why I'm like I gotta stay away.
and I'm gonna be honest, some of these I don't believe. They say zero sugar. I'm calling you guys out. I don't believe you. Like I feel like they're sweeter than the regular sugary monsters or energy drinks. I think something's going on. That being said, I had one this morning. So
There you go.
I'm not
You
above
know,
it.
and I try to like go up in waves, where I'm like I'm doing tons of caffeine, and I go, I should probably chill out and cut back a little bit. And normally that threshold is like when it's like 6:30 p.m. and I drink a Monster and then I still fall asleep. I'm like, yeah, that's probably when you can drink an energy drink and then fall asleep right afterwards. I don't know if you've been there, but that's when I go, maybe my adrenal glands are shot. I should probably chill out a little bit.
I'm there right now. So that's not. I'm 100% with you.
Okay, so at least I'm not alone in this then, huh?
Oh no, I know people that it's like they'll drink it at noon and they're wired for the rest of the day. I'm like, I could drink it at midnight and still fall asleep. And then, like you said, then it's like, okay, I have a problem. And
Yeah.
I just want to confirm what you said about that cracking in the can. If you enjoy those energy drinks and you hear that sound, it does something to your brain. I'm like, you know what? It's been a while. It wasn't. It was like yesterday morning, but in my mind, I'm like, I haven't had one for a long time. I'm gonna get my hands on one. So it's a huge problem.
100%.
So, you know,
100%. My wife's like, "Are you drinking that Monster with lunch because you like the taste or you need the caffeine?" I'm like, "I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but we're gonna." Did you already have one? I'm like, "Judgment. We don't need that around here. It's
Yeah.
okay."
It's just you gotta get the yeah. I've been there before. And sometimes I'm like, I'll justify stuff in my head. I'm like, yeah, I'm tired, I guess. I could
I
drink
think I'm
this.
tired. Sure.
Yeah, I could be a little bit more awake. It's fine. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm glad we had this conversation because I don't feel as bad about myself because
Yeah.
I
Me
enjoy them as
too.
well. What's
Yeah.
that?
We're together on that. I said
We're
we're together on that.
we're together on this. Yeah. So yeah, it's a problem. Anyways, that's not why we had you on this podcast. And I know we're running up against the time here, probably or a little over time. Um, but yeah, man, I know in the past I've asked you what you wanted your legacy to be for this home team. And that's just more of a generic thought. But even though we've kind of talked about it already, final thought before we get out of here, specifically about flag football. What do you want your legacy, your thumbprint to be for this sport specifically? Because obviously it's still new. You guys are, like we've talked about plenty on this podcast, it's just starting. But at this point, like when you walk away from it, what do you want your legacy to be about for what do you want your legacy to be for this sport specifically?
That's a good question because this is like kind of the start of my, coaching career, I guess you could say,
Sure.
right? Um, and but the two biggest things that I really want to bring to the sport and leave with the sport is number one, like I said, being a player's coach where the girls just enjoy being around, having me there. I want them to want me to be there as a coach, and to celebrate with them. That's one really big thing that I want to focus on and continue to do. And then hopefully, there's other coaches that come up that are like, oh, we want to be that cool coach, like the coach that loves on the girls and that hypes up with them and that celebrates with them. And so hopefully that continues on with other people as well. Because I didn't like the only reason I want to do this is because I want to be like the coaches that did it for me. So that's like my hope is that it continues to spiral that way. And then the second thing would be to bring some form of like, I don't know if I want to say professionalism, but like something about, hey, this isn't just a fun sport. Like I want to bring like a level of knowledge and like excellence and like coaching to it. Right now, there's so much install and there's so much learning, but like as the years progress and the girls get better, like I want to teach these girls how to run routes and to break. I want to see girls break other girls off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really bring like my own personal experience that I bring to my male football athletes and my male receivers. I want to be able to bring that same like attention to detail because I think that's something that someone would say about me as a coach, as like a private individual coach, is that like I'm really big on attention to detail and like mechanics. And so I would love to bring that to the female and the women's flag football side of things. So I think that half the world right now is like, hey, this is just really fun. And the other half is taking it really seriously. And so I'd love to be a part of that side that's like, hey, we're out here to be dogs. Like ladies, gentlemen, females, like no matter who I'm working with, I want them to go out there and be the absolute best they can be.
Just drop the mic right there. That's a perfect way to end this thing, man. Uh, where can people follow you? Social media. I know you're everywhere. Where can they follow you? If they're not already following you, where can they start?
Yeah. So all social media, especially Instagram at Fit Life with DT. My YouTube channel is Dynamic Training with DT. But shout out to my Del Oro girls at Do Girls Flag Football and Do JV Girls Flag Football on Instagram. So if you guys are interested in keeping up with what the girls are doing and what we're doing as a team, those are the two Instagram pages to follow them on.
There you go. Make sure you follow them. And as they pursue that next ring for Daniel Thomas and themselves. So make sure you guys follow Daniel. Make sure you guys follow the team as well. And yeah, man, as always, we appreciate you being on the show. We appreciate you giving back to the home team here in Sacramento, man. Always fun talking to you. I'll try to wait a little while before I bug you again to be on the podcast, but just know you're always in the notes as another guy to reach out to. So you do too good of a job. That's the problem. So really, it's not my fault. It's your fault. So
Well, hey, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it was a fun surprise. Like you said, it was short notice. So I'm super
sure.
happy to be on here and proud to give my Lady Eagles some love. So thanks for having me out here.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Good luck with everything. Take care.